welcome. It is the season, right? So we all wait for Halloween because we're usually our busiest. It's kind of that time where we get our most creative, and it's also a time that we over purchase and overthink everything that we need to get. So with that in mind, I want to say hello, welcome, thank you so much. I am so excited because my channel is almost at 50,000 subscribers, and I want to thank each and every one of you for making that possible. So hopefully I'll have more time to keep on making videos. It just gets busy during September and October. So with that being in mind, really quickly, I want to tell you and invite you to ACE Convention, the Austin Convention for Entertainers, that is happening next week, I know already, September 19th to the 23rd, I think, in Austin, Texas. And then after that, I come back for like a week and a half, and then I'm going to go to the UK for the UK convention. That's going to be held, I believe, it's not in, maybe it's in Birmingham. I apologize. Look at the link right here. And join me. Don't meet me there, beat me there. I'm teaching classes. I get to see everybody. But in the meantime, this particular little lesson is going to hopefully give you some insight on the different FX products that you can use to help make scars, to make special effects for the Halloween season. There's so much, and sometimes it's hard to decide like which one do you need, which one do you want, what would be best for what you do. So I'm going to try to break it down super simple for you very quickly so that you can buy the correct stuff. So with that in mind, I want to talk to you about the differences between liquid latex, synthetic wax, so a syn wax, 3D gel, and silicone. I have my practice mat right here, so I'm going to show you each of them just to show you the differences between them, and then you can ultimately decide which one is going to work best for what you're doing for Halloween. And not just Halloween, like all year round, right? If you get asked to do any of these. The great news is that they all get you to the end result just a different way. So first thing I want to show you guys is 3D gel. So 3D gel in its regular container, as you can see, think about gelatin, okay? That's essentially what it is, just colored, so you can pretty much add the color. So when you get it, it's gonna be kind of hard in the bottle. What you need to do is let it soak in a cup of hot water. You can put it in the microwave, but then you have to be very careful about how hot it becomes because you do not want to burn any of your customers, right? That would be super important. Then I like to have a bunch of like disposable things like little cups because with special effects they tend to be a couple things: sticky, make a mess, and you're also going to use small amounts at a time, so you don't want to make too much because then you're going to waste it. So you're going to let your 3D gel sit inside of some hot water till it loosens itself up, till it's in a gel form. Then this is great for things like drips, that melted look, Freddy Krueger, if you want to look like their skin is melting off. I know a couple of years ago, Desi Perkins did that look and it was super popular and everybody wanted 3D gel. The upside to 3D gel is you don't need glue and it's very easy to use. The downside to 3D gel is that you need some way to warm it up. So if you're like on the job and you don't have access to hot water or a microwave, might not be the best thing for you. So once it's melted, let me show you what I like to do. Let me just start off with this first because I want you to be able to see it. I'm going to put down just a little bit of a red base just so you can see it more than anything else, okay? So I'm just gonna kind of put that down as a background, okay? Then what I'm gonna do is I'll make 3 different wounds. So I'm gonna put just a little bit, squeeze it out onto something, and you see if it's not warmed up enough, you're not gonna be able to get it in a workable form. So the good thing is that you can use several different things to apply it. Like I said, I like to apply it with things I can throw away. So this is kind of like a spatula. So all I would do is just kind of start building the wound, right? So as you can see, the word 3D gel lives up to its name. So it kind of dries on the skin really quickly, no glue necessary, okay? You can stretch it out, you can kind of texturize it by way of using a spatula or using a popsicle stick. You can blend out the edges so that they look, not so thick. You can create like pus wounds with it. So very simple to work with. Here's the thing. One, you got to work fast before it dries or before it hardens. If it hardens, then you're not going to be able to move it around, okay? Let me see if I can zoom in and show you guys. Okay, so as you can see, I'm going to try to show you a little closer. As you can see, you're going to get this kind of texturized 3D effect, which is awesome, right? Because if you want to build up wounds, or if you want to create fake wounds using Synwax, which we're going to go over next, or using liquid latex, there's usually a longer drying time. So the good news is that 3D gel is very lightweight. That makes it really good to put on the skin because it's not going to be as super heavy. You can layer it, so meaning like if I did my first layer and I want it to be even thicker, you can build on top of it by just going right on top of it. But once you use your 3D gel and say you get down your initial base for this wound that we're doing, you will want to powder it. Okay, so that's another thing. Some people don't like the powder. You will want to powder the 3D gel because if not, it's going to be sticky. So when you go to paint it, when you go to add extra color, you're going to want to make sure that it is that it's not sticky, or else you're going to ruin your paint and everything's going to stick to it and you're going to lift it up. So I recommend using kind of like a powder brush, or you can use a sock with baby powder in it. That is up to you. You can use cornstarch, you can use setting powder. So once it's dry, you're going to touch it, and when it's not as sticky, that's when you can go in and you can just gently tap it and powder it. That is going to take away the stickiness, and that's also going to make it so that you can paint it right away, right? So if you can see, I'm going to try to dust off some of that. So as you can see, you get a nice 3D cut, right? It can be a cut wound. You can use this to make every single type of wound that you can think of. If you wanted to like attach flies to the skin, it's really lightweight, super easy to use. You only need to make sure it heats it up. Now, the other cool thing about 3D gel is that you can use either you can use either grease-based paint, or you can use water-based paint. So if you only have, say, like a Fab palette, or if you only have your bruise wheel, you can use that. So with most of your bruises, you want to start with the darkest color on the inside of the bruise, just to kind of make that the deepest parts. So you can use your regular paint brushes. I like to go right inside of there. And the good thing about using grease is that you can blend with your fingers really easily, okay? So then I'll put some more of that kind of reddish color in there, and you can start building. Of course, you can start, creating more of the wound with these infected colors right around the edges. You can, again, make this as elaborate and detailed as you want it. But I want to make sure I cover everything, so we'll wait till the end to add the blood and the extra stuff. Okay. Our next product, I'm going to talk to you guys about liquid latex. Okay, liquid latex is by far the most common product used for special effects. Why? Because it's affordable. It's usually, you can get it all the way up to a gallon. It is used for a lot of different things, from like ripped flesh to old age. People use it for body painting. I don't always recommend it because when you have to peel it off, it's not always the best, but that's a personal choice. You got to decide. Liquid latex is also very common because it's been used forever and ever and ever. The upside is that, again, it's affordable, it's economical, it's very easy to find if you don't have a sillyfarm near you. The downside is it smells, right? It smells like ammonia. So putting it near the nose, putting it anywhere with a hairy area, putting it near the eyes can be problematic. Second thing is some people have latex allergies. So please ask your clients first. Okay. So if you want to build up edges like I did here for this bruise with liquid latex, what I suggest you do is use something like cotton or use tissue, something that's going to build up the edges for you, because if you build them with liquid latex, there's a drying time and it takes too long. So If you're gonna use cotton, then I suggest like take a little piece of cotton, kind of roll it in your hand like this to build up the same edges, okay? Now, if you want your bruises, your cuts, your scabs, whatever, to last longer, then I would suggest putting down a little bit of spirit gum, Prozade, this is just spirit gum. Put it down first and glue your either tissue or your cotton to it so that it doesn't come up. It's going to give it kind of that extra reinforcement, especially as you're going to be covering it with liquid latex. Okay, so let's just pretend like I glued that down, and you'll want to glue it down, like I said, so that when you go to move them and you go to cover them, that they don't roll everywhere like they're kind of doing now. Okay, just like this. Okay, now with liquid latex, like I said, it can be smelly. So keep that in mind, guys. I'm gonna pour a little bit in here, what I plan on using, and then I am going to just take an old brush. And the reason I say an old brush is because you don't want to use a new brush. Liquid latex almost ruins, I don't want to say ruins everything, but you definitely want to use something that you don't mind kind of getting rid of. So what you're going to do is I'm just going to start generously covering my cotton. Okay, and of course you don't want to change. This is why it helps to glue it so that you don't have the cotton kind of rolling around. Liquid latex, guys, is not glue, just so that everyone understands. Liquid latex creates a texture. It can act as an adhesive, but it's not a glue. So for the strongest hold, okay, so as you can see, what I'm doing is covering my cotton all the way. But the cotton, by covering it, like I said, that builds up what we call the walls of the wound, okay? So you'll want to pay special attention to fanning out the edges, okay? So as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm putting a generous amount, but I'm kind of thinning out those edges. And again, this just helps so that your wound is not just going to look like chunky and like stuck on the skin. You want it to be nicely tapered. So pretend I'm on the skin. So what you have to do with this is let it dry. Now, if you're working at a haunted house or you have multiple customers that you need to be doing, I suggest bringing a hair dryer, because the thicker the paper or cotton is, the longer it's going to take to dry. So I'm going to let that dry while we move on to the next thing. I'll come back to it. But as you can see, what's happening is you're building your own shape. You're building your own wound. You can really get fancy with liquid latex. There's lots you can do with it, but I'm going to kind of let that dry before I show you. And you'll want to put a generous amount. Why? So that it holds, but two, so that you can have room to play. Okay? So as you can see, this brush is going to be kind of junk when it's all done, because liquid latex dries like gooey and hard and like stiffer and hard, and you don't want to do that. Okay, our next one, Sin Wax. Everyone loves Sin Wax. If you follow, there's a few special effects accounts on Instagram like FABAtv. He does the most amazing things using Sin Wax or synthetic wax. It is amazing because you can texturize it, you can really make it look realistic. The downside to it is that it is wax, which means it is affected by the heat, right? So think of a candle. When candles get heated up, they start melting. Same thing with wax. If it's going to be on your skin for a long time, or it's going to be in a vertical position and it's heavy, eventually it's going to fall off or get very soft. So I like to recommend it for like photo shoots or for not long-term things, because again, your body heat is at a 98.6 degrees typically, or 97 degrees. So when you start dancing or having fun or wearing a costume or walking around and your body temperature starts to heat up, then it starts making the wax softer. Even if you put some sort of wax sealer on it, it still tends to get soft because it's touching your skin. So when you get it, it's going to be hard like a rock. So you need something kind of strong to scoop it out. So, you know, use the end of a brush, use whatever. Before you even do that, you need to get this out, which is Vaseline. okay? And you need to coat your hands, because if you don't, then the wax is going to stick to you, okay? So once I coated my hands with the Vaseline, you're gonna dig out like a good enough chunk, because if you don't get enough, then you're not gonna be able to build anything. So I wanna get like this much, maybe even more, depends. So you put it in your hands. If it still sticks to your hands, get some more Vaseline, rub it in your hands. So the heat of your hands is what makes it pliable, okay? So you're gonna just kind of let the heat of your hands, your body heat, kind of melt it down. And then you can start rolling it into any shape that you want, right? So this is going to replace the cotton. Some people are like, so why don't you just use cotton? Okay, you can with latex. You wouldn't want to cover it necessarily with wax because it would take longer. Okay, so let's just make, say, a bullet wound, for example. I would still recommend to put down some spirit gum or Pros-Aid first before you put down your wax, just to make it better for sticking purposes, right? So I'm going to just I kind of rolled it into a tube, and now I'm just going to press it just like that. I'm gonna pick up some more Vaseline on my fingertips so that I can start massaging the edges, okay? Because that's how you're gonna get the smooth edge like we did with the latex, but you're going to need to do that using your fingers, or again, using a spatula. Okay, now if you're going to be using like a popsicle stick, you don't want to dig it in there. So I would still recommend, using the combination of like the popsicle stick as well as your fingers, because you want to have it nicely blended, okay? You don't want it to look like thick like that side, because it doesn't look as realistic. Okay, so here's the thing. You can blend this down. You can, add ridges. You can stick things to it. You can really make it look realistic without having to heat it up like the 3D gel. You can move it around because it doesn't dry like your 3D gel or like your latex, so you can kind of always go and readjust it. So like I said, if you're on a movie scene, if you're gonna be doing photo shoots, it's really helpful to have the synthetic wax, because it's going to help you to be flexible and kind of readjust. It's not always great if you're going to be moving and you want it to last a really long time. Sorry about that, because that's just going to create more issues. So here is my little, we can say, bullet wound. If you want to learn more in-depth wounds, you can go on FABAtv. We have so many great classes. Okay, so just like your 3D gel, you're also going to want to powder it. The reason you want to powder it is because you want to make sure that you take away the stickiness. There's stickiness from the Vaseline and there's stickiness from wax. So I'm just going to powder it. And once it's powdered, it's ready to go, right? So you can start painting it. You can paint it, like I said, with grease-based paint or water-based paint, and now it's ready to go. So there's no drying time. So that's an upside if you're in a rush, or if you don't want to bring a blow dryer and such. That is going to work really well for you. And again, you can always go in. I like to go in the corners and start with my darker color, just to kind of deepen that out, right? And then you can always go in with the other colors and kind of work along the edges. And also, as I was saying with the Sin Wax, is that you can use things like your popsicle sticks if you want to give it more like texture, right? So you can go in and kind of make these lines. If you're doing like an exit wound or an entry wound, you can really manipulate the look of it by just going in and adding, kind of pressing in it. It's also very easy to paint, which is, again, something that I like. It doesn't bubble. You can use, like I said, water-based, alcohol-based, or grease-based paint on it, okay? Now remember, with your bruise wheels, if there's one bruise wheel that I recommend, guys, it is the Maron bruise wheel. Just really like the colors, super easy to use. Like as you can see here, I can blend with it. You can blend with a stipple sponge, you can just blend with your finger, you can blend with a kabuki brush. That's a beauty of it. And I like the color selection, right? So you can see, so simple. You can do your very own bullet wounds, and then we're gonna add blood at the end because, you know, at the end of the day. Okay, so let's go back to this for a second. My liquid latex is getting there, okay? So first thing I'm gonna do, just to show you guys, is you can pick up, you can use, you know, something, I don't want to call it, but a tweezer would work, to kind of create little holes in your liquid latex to give it different looks. So as you can see right here, I made these little holes so they can look like, you know, little pus areas or flesh rotting. So you can do that and create that look. But you see, you'll want to go back in at this point and add a second layer of liquid latex, because again, you want to cover all of the cotton, or else it's not going to work. Okay, so we're going to let that dry for a second while we go on to our last and final product, FX product. Some people stay away from the silicone just because they don't know how to use it. So it comes in two parts, and my hands are a little greasy, so let me wash them all. It comes in two parts. So that's part A and part B. And the hardest thing about it is just making sure you put the correct top on, okay? So what you'll want to do is you'll want to open them, and you just want to mix equal parts. And please don't stick the same stick inside of both of them, because you don't want to contaminate them. You're going to ruin whatever's left. So I would just take kind of like a little scoop of A, and I'll put it inside of my cup. And then I'm going to use the other end and try to get the same exact amount or scoop of B. And then all you do is you just mix them, okay? So try to mix them good, please, because you want to make sure that your silicone sticks and such. Now again, I'm going to put down just so you can see, but you see, now it's ready. And then please put your tops back on so that you don't waste it. All right, so I'm going to put down just a little bit of a background so that you can see it when I create it. Silicone, upside, no heating. Silicone, upside, super lightweight. So kind of the same weight as your 3D gel, meaning very lightweight. The upside is that, again, it's very simple to use, very simple to mix. So once you have it mixed, you're going to apply it just like you did. I'm going to just kind of smear it on, just like this. And I'm going to use it to build up my edges. Now, silicone is very flexible, which is good, right? So that means you can kind of attach things to it. You can blend out the edges like such. You can make those soft, you know, blended edges just like this. You can also go back in and mix little batches at a time, and then go on top of it. So you can build it up if you want it to be like thicker, higher, can build right on top of it. So now, also, no glue necessary, okay? So you're saying, oh, that's good. So why don't more people use silicone? One, the price. I mean, luckily this month we have the 3rd degree, which is the silicone that I like to use, on sale at SillyFarm. Two, the other thing is that you have to work not too fast, but you need to work relatively fast with it, because once it dries, you cannot remove, like you can't rework it like you would wax, okay? So we are going to let that dry. It starts to cure. Cure means that it's going to start drying in just about 5 minutes. Especially if it's hot, you should be totally fine. Once it's dry, you'll want to powder it as well. I like to powder it. It takes away all of the stickiness. It makes it so that I can work with it right away. But if you can see the differences between them. So this is my 3D gel, my liquid latex, my wax, and now my silicone. So silicone, you can color it ahead of time by using alcohol-based paints, you can use flocking powders, or you have to use either airbrush makeup or you have to use grease-based, powder that, and then use your water-based on top of it. If you just go to paint on top of it with regular water-based, it can tend to bead up because the silicone kind of rejects the water, right? It becomes waterproof. That's another bonus to it, so that if someone's a heavy sweater, it really does help when the silicone is waterproof, right? Because then they can sweat, it's not gonna fall off as easy. The other thing is you don't need glue for it, which makes it extremely helpful because you can just start creating, like ripped mouth like the Joker, ripped up nose, bloody bling, and you can put it on top of hair without it ripping. It has no smell at all. Most people are not allergic to it, which is also a benefit. But like I said, the other downside is you just have to work a little faster with it and you have to mix it on the spot. Some people don't like to. Okay, so you'll know that it's ready to go when you touch it and it's not as sticky. And then of course, as I recommended, just take a little powder, and I like to powder it just so that I don't ruin my brushes, okay? Okay, so as you see, it's looking good. This particular silicone is clear. There are some that are colored. Like I said, you can color it yourself, but it's very simple to add the colors that you want to it. Again, you can go right on top of it with an airbrush, if that's your method of airbrushing. If you like to, you can use your finger. All of these beautiful ways to color it. Again, do not be scared to use your paintbrush. Right inside of there, get in those little cracks and areas to kind of darken them out because you don't want people to see. It also helps when you go to put blood in there because there's already kind of like a deeper background. So those are the things. Now, my liquid latex is already dry. So again, same idea, just gonna go in and kind of add a little color right inside of there using, I'm gonna go right inside of there. Oh, that side wasn't as dry, but for time intensive purposes, I'm gonna go right back in there. Just kind of color it. You can paint right on top of the cotton. Cotton is, you know, typically pretty lightweight. Just like this. Go in, kind of blend, just like that. Okay, you see? So you see how you can create so many different things. And then of course, you know, there's millions of types of blood. We have spray blood. You'll watch Janelle's class on FABAtv where she shows the coolest trick on how to make blood splatter. I encourage you to tune in. We also have tons of different types of stage blood. Again, I like to put things inside of a cup before I just dip my brush in it to avoid extra spillage and stuff. So you can always take your blood and again put it exactly where you want to, right inside of your wounds. Let it drip. If you have a stipple sponge, oh yes, that's one of the best ways. This is definitely more of a liquidy blood. If you want a thicker blood, you're going to want to use stage blood, because stage blood has more syrup in it. So it has more of the corn syrup. So it's not going to be as runny. But, so as you can see right here, see how it's even just thicker for me to squeeze out, right? So it stays put, and it's really good if you want to stipple it on or make scrapes, right? Because you're going to be able to make kind of that road rash. You can, if you put it inside of your wound like that, it's going to stay because it's thicker, where your squirt blood is going to be a little bit more runny. So you have to decide what works for you. And again, I like using my stipple sponge. To me, it gives it a really nice, realistic look, as you can see here. And these are four different ways to create special effects wounds. I hope you were able to follow along. I know I covered a lot in a short amount of time. I just wanted to give you guys some insight as to which might work best for what you're trying to do. We have the first one is the 3D gel that needs to be heated up, but it's very lightweight, no glue needed, very easy to remove. I'll show you. You can just kind of like peel it up just like this, pick it off, and that's it. That's how you clean it up. It's gonna feel like jelly, so think like, you know, Jello pudding or Jello. Liquid latex, okay? You have to peel this up, and you can see at sometimes, you feel that, I still need to take a picture, but you will peel it up. So if it's gonna be on someone's eyebrow,